We're diving into two critical issues shaping U.S. immigration policy now. First, the government increasing scrutiny of applicants' political beliefs, including assessing signs of anti-Americanism. Second, greater emphasis on evaluating a citizenship application's good moral character. For insight on what this means for immigrants, we're joined by Mariam Masumi Daud, who is a managing attorney at Johnson Masumi. Mariam, thank you for joining us again this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mariam, I wanted to kind of fine-tune who this targets here. Are these changes specifically for citizenship applicants or green card and work permit applicants, or just green card and work permit applicants here?
Well, we had two updates to USCIS's policies for immigration benefits, and the most recent one is a memo that essentially tells officers that they should be looking at individuals' immigration applications who have in their history any sort of anti-American ideology. And this is for any discretionary application. So this could be for a green card, this could be for a work permit, this could be for a parole application, or even an investor visa. So the anti-Americanism policy that's been put out is really for any discretionary immigration benefit. We also saw another policy update last Friday, which is for good moral character, which is a requirement that someone needs to demonstrate for naturalization. So these are people who are seeking U.S. citizenship. And what USCIS has done is directed its officers to do a more holistic approach as to an applicant's background in order to assess whether or not they're deserving of U.S. citizenship.
Were these things not considered before, whether or not you had anti-American beliefs when you applied for a work permit or a green card or citizenship?
No, this is something that's completely unprecedented. This is essentially an ideological screening of individuals in order to see what kinds of beliefs they hold. And unfortunately, expressing an opinion that could even be protected under the First Amendment is something that could be used against you when having an officer adjudicate your immigration case. Now, good moral character is a requirement that everyone has always had to demonstrate in order to become a U.S. citizen. However, you usually pass if you could demonstrate that there was an absence of criminal history or any other immigration violations that you may have had. But now they're also looking at specific information about you as a person. They're asking if you've lived in the U.S. a long time, if you have held steady employment, if you've pursued your education, are you a family person, are you involved in your community? So you now have to essentially prove that you're deserving of U.S. citizenship, whereas before it was just an absence of criminal history that allowed you to prove that.
Okay, so you didn't have to go through this. And back to the issue of anti-American beliefs, these type of things, was it the reason it was not put into the application process because it was subjective? I'm trying to understand why that was never part of the process before and why it could be problematic now.
Yeah, so discretionary applications, usually discretion is looked at by balancing the positive attributes of a person's case versus the negative. And so now what the government is doing is adding this additional factor that never previously existed. And to me, it seems like it's more or less targeting individuals who may have certain views, because at this point, if you've expressed certain views that may criticize U.S. foreign policy, now that may be used against you. Whereas before, immigration officers were not in the business. It's asking individuals what their political opinions are, what their views on America are. But even recently, with this policy going into effect, we've heard immigration lawyers share, and my office has personally seen as well, that applicants are being asked these questions. What do you think about America? What is your intentions here in America? What are your views on American, foreign policy? So these are the kinds of things that can now be used against individuals if they give an answer that might not be satisfactory to an officer.
Yeah, in response to this, USCIS sent a statement saying the memo ensures that USCIS officers are accounting for an alien's positive contributions to American society, including community involvement, achievements, and financial responsibility, rather than the absence of their misconduct. So this is something that's going to be changing how we move forward here. When do the changes go into effect? The memo was already issued. Does that mean it's in effect right now?
It is in effect right now. It's now something right now. Officers are actually asking applicants at their interviews these questions verbally. With respect to good moral character, they are asking individuals, what do you do for work? How long have you been living here in the United States? Are you a family person? Are you going to church? Are you involved in your community? So they're taking this testimony from individuals at interviews right now. And at this point in time, there hasn't been any specific guidance as to how they're supposed to adjudicate this, but I imagine they'll also follow up with documentation to prove these kinds of things, whereas before it was not required.
Which is much harder because when applying, it's all about the paperwork and you get sent back for paperwork. It's not necessarily the easiest process. Immigration attorney Mariam Masumi Daud, thank you for joining us this morning and providing your insight.
Thank you very much for having me.